The Saints' 10-game win streak is snapped in Dallas, so is there cause for concern for Sean Payton and company? We'll discuss. Plus, LSU is headed west for their bowl game, Tulane is headed east. And did the playoff committee get it right? And high school officiating in Louisiana is facing a long-term problem. The Saints got some help Sunday. The Bears lost, so the Saints stayed 2 games up on a first-round playoff bye. But the performance in Dallas was at least enough to show the Saints aren't unbeatable. Welcome to 4th Down on 4. I'm Andrew Doak. Our 4th Down on 4 question tonight. What's your level of concern right now? 3 choices. Do you still believe the Saints are Super Bowl bound? Or are you somewhat concerned? Or do you now believe the Saints cannot get to the Super Bowl? Vote now on our mobile app or our website, wwltv.com/vote. Doug Mouton kicks us off with the ugly story from Dallas.
Here's something we didn't expect to be saying. The Saints are going to have to get a lot better offensively to make a playoff run. So what happened in Dallas? Did the Cowboys expose a weakness in the Saints offense, or was it just a blip on the road to Atlanta? Many are quick to point out the Cowboys snapped the Saints' 13-game win streak back in '09, and a Super Bowl run followed. Did that just happen again? Obviously, we don't know yet, but this one was an offensive clunker.
We didn't have the balance that we've had in the prior games. We struggled running the ball with any consistency.
We didn't really find a rhythm for pretty much the whole game.
The Cowboys pressured, covered, and tackled better than any team the Saints have played this season. The NFL's highest scoring offense gained a grand total of 176 yards, and Dallas held Mike Thomas to 40 receiving yards.
It was holding. It was holding for sure. My job now is to make sure they can't hold it. I have to play even more violent, I have to play more physical, I have to, I got to get stronger, whatever it takes so they don't hold me.
Every holding call that they threw was on Mike. Yeah, they were holding every chance they got.
However they did it, the Cowboys were able to lock down Mike Thomas, and the Saints were unable to find a secondary weapon. They are expected at some point to get Ted Ginn back. He would definitely help, maybe Brandon Marshall, but this game definitely showed the Saints' weakness at wide receiver. Here's the perfect example. 1st and goal, Traquan Smith cannot make the catch. Des Bryant probably makes that catch. The Saints wound up turning it over on downs and getting no points.
We struggled really throughout the night having any consistency offensively.
The Saints were also without left tackle Teron Armstead, the leading vote getter at his position for the Pro Bowl. He'll help too. And as bad as it was, the Saints had a shot until Drew Brees threw the game-ending interception just before the 2-minute warning.
No, I was trying to throw it away, actually. I was just trying to throw it at his feet and just kept it up a little bit too high.
I'm not worried about it, we'll be just fine. We still got the same playmakers, we're good. We just gotta fix it. We didn't do enough today, so we gonna make sure that this never happens again.
While the offense struggled, the defense continues to make dramatic improvement.
You just gotta give credit to the other side. We probably played good, but they played better.
The Cowboys' defense was better, but the Saints held Dallas to just 13 points. They got 7 sacks and 2 turnovers. In a weird twist, the defense was plenty good enough to win in a loss.
We might look at it like that, 5 or 6 days from now, but right now it's a loss on the road, to a team we wanted to come in here and beat. So ask me that in 5 days, and I'll probably have a better answer for you.
They had some big plays, getting the ball back for us, some big stops, certainly enough for us to win. And that's going to, going forward, we keep getting better on that side of the ball.
It's something that we're going to break down film and kick ourselves in the backside and propel ourselves to be better. If anything, we're going to learn who we are after a loss.
That is the truth. The Saints will now learn who they are. Are they the team that laid an egg in Dallas, or the team that destroyed multiple playoff teams on their way to 10 wins in a row?
We get some time now to get some guys healthy. We play 3 games in 11 days. That's tough. We'll regroup after this weekend and get ready to work.
Reporting in Dallas, Doug Mouton, 4th Down on 4.
All right, Larry Holder from The Athletic here. We're here to let you know the Saints season is still going okay. I mean, they're still 10-2 on the year. Obviously, they dropped into second place in the NFC as far as the playoff seeding is concerned at this point in time. When you look at that Dallas game, though, there's some people out there who might say maybe Dallas found out a formula of how to beat the Saints and how to be able to knock them off. I felt like offensively, it was credit to Dallas defense, but I felt like it was kind of just an off night for Drew Brees and them. And I feel like sometimes after a 10-game winning streak, 3 games in 11 days, maybe that can happen. I mean, what was your reaction after that loss?
I feel like Dallas's defense had a lot to do with it. Now, could they replicate that if they had to play again? I don't know, because if they had to play again, I'm assuming it would be in the Superdome. But I do feel like it did expose a little bit that the Saints' offensive line is a little beat up. Jermon Bushrod certainly isn't Teron Armstead. Now, Teron Armstead is going to be back, so I feel like you could kind of quell any of that panic. But I feel like the offensive line as a whole has been dealing with some nicks and injuries. Remember, a week or two ago, the entire offensive line was on the injury report. So they are dealing with some issues there. But I feel like Dallas's defense came out with a very good plan. Their linebackers are very good. I feel like the defensive front with DeMarcus Lawrence is very good. And we've seen Dallas upend the Saints after a long winning streak before in the history of this team. And so
that was a big year that
people were almost thinking, oh, maybe that was part of the problem. But I feel like you look at the rest of the Saints' schedule coming up, I think the defenses aren't as daunting. And I bet you if the Saints played Dallas again, they would have a better game plan and attack this a little differently.
But look, the shining spot I thought for the Saints team was their defense. I thought was pretty phenomenal, to be honest with you, especially in the second half. I mean, they held Dallas scoreless, 2 turnovers, 7 sacks they produced. I thought that was a shining spot, and I feel like that's something that the Rams, the team ahead of them in the NFC, doesn't have right now. They seem to be kind of reeling. I think that's something that could carry the Saints throughout this stretch of the regular season to close it out.
Well, we've been seeing the defense play incrementally better. There's no doubt about that. While the Saints were scoring all these points, they proved that they can actually keep teams under 20 points, which not a lot of teams in the NFL can do anymore. Yeah. But I still have some concern with the defense. I feel like the score could have easily been 20-10 because Eli Apple gets beat on a double move, and if Dak Prescott is more accurate, that's a touchdown with no problem. They also took a knee at the 1 at the end of the game.
Yeah.
If they punched that in, it could have been even bigger. But I do feel like that you're seeing increased pressure on quarterbacks. I like what the Saints are doing in the linebacker play. And I almost feel like that was Dallas's night. And this defense is keeping them in games and helping the offense as opposed to just the offense carrying them. So that is a huge plus moving forward as they push toward the playoffs.
Really quickly on offense, one thing that I noticed was outside of Michael Thomas, you don't have many other options. That's why you brought in somebody like Des Bryant, maybe even Brandon Marshall potentially. Are you worried about them not really having a number 2 receiver right now?
I think it is a little bit of a concern. I mean, I know they had the 4 touchdowns to 4 undrafted guys a couple weeks ago, but other teams, when you get to the playoffs, they could take that away, and they're going to try to take Michael Thomas away. I'm curious to see when Brandon Marshall gets on the field. I think you might start wanting to work him in maybe in these last couple of games.
Good thing is for the Saints, look, you got a little help in the division today with the Carolina loss. Chicago lost, who's right behind you. You're not too far off from the Rams, but obviously you need a Rams loss, hopefully down the stretch, in order to be in the mix for the number 1 seed. Look, Larry Holder is going to stick around with us. We're going to talk some college football and the playoff Final Four coming up here in just a few minutes when 4th Down on 4 continues. Coming up, the Tigers are headed to the Fiesta Bowl for the very first time, but they'll be without their 2 starting cornerbacks in the desert. Plus, Tulane is headed to its first bowl since 2013, and it'll be against a familiar opponent. And we'll ask the question, did the playoff committee get it right? And later, there's a growing problem when it comes to refereeing high school football games in Louisiana.
4th Down on 4 is sponsored by the Sportsbook at Hollywood Casino Gulf Coast. Forget Vegas, you've got home field advantage.
It was an exciting Sunday in Baton Rouge. LSU was invited to a New Year's Six Bowl this season, the first LSU has been a part of since the playoff format began. The Tigers checked in at number 11 in the final college football playoff rankings and will face number 8 Central Florida in the Fiesta Bowl. But the Tigers will also have to manage without 2 of their best players. LSU corner Greedy Williams announced Sunday afternoon that he'll be entering the 2019 NFL Draft this April and will not participate in the Tigers bowl game. The Tigers' other starting but injured corner, Christian Fulton, will not play in the desert either. LSU head coach Ed Orgeron announced via teleconference that Fulton underwent surgery on the ankle he injured against Arkansas. However, the Knights will be down a man as well. Starting quarterback Mackenzie Milton suffered a horrific knee injury in Central Florida's final regular season game, so LSU will not see the nation's 34th ranked passing offense operating at full capacity.
We're the star quarterback for the UCF.
And that just cannot happen on championship weekend.
Mack well protected down the sideline. He drops it into Ernest Anderson for a touchdown.
Right now, I mean, it's consistent that there's no talk by the people that matter about an expansion. Yes, fans and others, may talk about an expansion, but we really don't think it's in the cards anytime soon. We expect to live out the end of this contract.
All right, Larry Holder from The Athletic back with us to talk a little college football. Everybody has an opinion when it comes to this Final Four that the playoff committee released. Look, I probably have a little bit of a contrarian view because I don't think Notre Dame is one of the top 4 teams. I know they're undefeated, but my personal top 4, I had Alabama, Clemson, Oklahoma, and then Georgia at 4. I know that wouldn't make a lot of people happy probably out there from the Big Ten and even Notre Dame faithful. I just don't feel like Notre Dame was really tested this year. What was your Final Four? And do you feel like they need some expansion? Because I know a lot of people from UCF out there upset they didn't even get consideration.
Well, I'm sure people from UCF, I'm sure people from Ohio State are saying the same thing. Yeah. Absolutely. But I do feel like the committee got it right. I think they got the 4 deserving teams. Now, that might not be the criteria because they are all talking about who are the 4 best teams. So would expansion cure that problem? Sure. You'd still hear griping over the 9 and 10 team that never got in.
Right.
They're the 9 and 10 team. Let's give me a break. But I do understand where you're coming from because I think Georgia or Oklahoma or Ohio State, I think all 3 of them would beat Notre Dame.
And that's how I look at it. Look, let's look to LSU. They're headed to the Fiesta Bowl. They're in a New Year's Six Bowl, which I think is huge for them, both on and off the field. And especially when I look at this matchup, I mean, it's the biggest bowl game they've been since 2011, the national championship. So, I mean, I think this can give a lot of momentum to Coach Orgeron and LSU going into the offseason, no?
I think the fact that they're playing the Fiesta Bowl for the first time ever, I think that's pretty unique and cool because that's still one of the big bad boy bowls out there. So I think that's a big plus for the program. Now, if they lose this game to Central Florida, I think you're going to have the faction who are thinking, oh, come on, Central Florida still isn't that good. But if you want to hear about Central Florida kind of being knocked down a peg, you want LSU to win. And I do think that LSU has more riding on this bowl game than maybe people think. 10 wins would be huge for this program, for the upcoming recruiting class, which is already one of the best in the country. And you don't want to go 9-4, 9-4, even though this 9-4 is better, it would be better than last year's. 10 wins would help kind of put another stamp on the program for Ed Orgeron.
All right, Larry Holder of The Athletic. Go check his stuff out. Thanks for being with us tonight, man.
You got it, Andrew. Thanks.
All right, switching gears to another team in New Orleans that's going bowling this bowl season. In the 125 history of Tulane football, this year's Green Wave team is the 12th to play in a bowl game. Willie Fritz said that first this afternoon after his Green Wave accepted an invitation to play UL Lafayette in 2 weeks in Orlando. For Willie Fritz, it's a major step forward. His 2018 Green Wave are bowl eligible, a team that's continued to climb the mountain in the American Conference, from 1 conference win in 2016 to 3 last year to 5 this year, and now his players are rewarded with a bowl trip.
They're very excited. We had a great practice Saturday. It was neat because we had a bunch of recruits in and they were able to watch us practice, which is a bonus, that we haven't had the last couple of years.
And Tulane will play its first bowl game under Willie Fritz with a new offensive coordinator. Fritz parted ways with Doug Roos. Alex Atkins steps in for this game while the search for a new coordinator begins.
I always want to have a strong run game. That's always going to be a part of our offense. I think the teams that win big have got good running attacks, so we're certainly going to emphasize that. But we're also going to make some changes, and there's going to be some things we're going to do a little bit differently.
He wouldn't give a timetable for that decision, but said he expects to do it soon. But his bowl trip is early, the first weekend of bowl season, and he's trying to balance recruiting. But winning this one is huge. It's the difference between 7-6 and 6-7.
I believe it's 5 winning seasons the last 36 years here at Tulane. So we want to make it 6.
Still ahead, we'll shine a light on a growing concern for high school football in Louisiana. The number of referees available on Friday nights, and the problem is getting worse. That story after the break. We're back and with new batteries for the microphone. 5 local schools will play for state championships this week. 2 of those 5 play each other when Edna Carr takes on Warren Easton for the 4A state championship. That'll be a rematch. Carr won the first game in a thriller by 1 point. Doug Mouton was there and shows us how that game highlighted a growing problem in Louisiana high school sports.
In high school football, it doesn't get any better than this. Edna Carr and Warren Easton at a packed Berman Stadium.
Let's go, let's go.
The state of Louisiana produces the 3rd most big-time college players per capita. Carr has 20 Power 5 conference signees in the last decade. That's the most in Louisiana, meaning nowhere in the country will you see a talent level better than this game. Elite players, terrific coaching staffs, and
let's have a good game, right?
An A-list team of officials. Skip Chatelaine made sure to put a Superdome caliber crew in place for this game. Skip schedules which officials work which games in the New Orleans district. There are 10 districts across the state. Skip has spent 21 years in the stripes, but tonight he's watching and evaluating.
You know, this is going to sound silly, but as an official coming out the tunnel with the team, I get the same rush as an official as I did when I was playing.
These guys are all out here because they love doing it. You certainly don't get rich as a high school official. Most of these guys are making $95 tonight.
If you're doing this for the money, in your own business.
Brian Lesh was on the sidelines for 45 years. He's making $50 to run the clock at Berman Stadium. And like all the guys who do it, he just loves it.
I remember a state championship game a few years ago when it was all over in the dome. We walked off, we just all hugged each other. I mean, it was just the greatest feeling in the world to work a game and do that.
But the problem is fewer guys want to do it.
I think the problem has been around for quite a while. It's been sort of quietly ignored.
Here we go. But now it's getting worse. The average age of a prep official used to be a guy in his 40s. Now it's 51. And at some point in the not-too-distant future, they're going to have to replace a lot of older guys. And for now, you don't really have those replacement numbers, do you?
We really don't. We really don't.
Skip Chatelaine and company are actively recruiting the next generation.
Every game's an adventure. Something happens at every game.
Alex DeSherry is Louisiana's youngest official. He's a 19-year-old UNO student, and he's found his passion.
Do you expect to still be doing this in 10 years?
Oh, most definitely. And I also have aspirations of doing it in the collegiate level, and if that door opens up, hopefully the NFL.
For this game, Alex is on the chain crew, but he does officiate other games. In the past, inexperienced guys wouldn't be put on the field so quickly. That's changed, and that's one of the negative effects of the referee shortage. Another, in some cases across the state, coaches have been asked to move games to a Thursday night because there weren't enough guys to effectively staff the Friday schedule.
This game between Carr and Warren Easton gets a full 7-man officiating crew, but maybe the most negative effect of the referee shortage is that some games across Louisiana are now being officiated with 6 and even 5-man crews.
Do we need 7 guys to do a fair job with kids as athletic as we're going to see tonight?
Without a doubt.
With a 5-man crew, you have some gaps there. You have a head linesman and a line judge who will have to cover the line of scrimmage, but also cover deep passes downfield. So the coverage may drop off a little bit with a 5-man crew. When you're in a big ball game, you want to have that coverage.
And for now, they have enough guys to cover all their big ball games with full crews. But the fact is, fewer new guys are joining up.
I think the biggest thing is commitment, and people don't want to put in the commitment to do it because there is a very large of time, energy.
There's a lot of meetings, a lot of training, but
I think being on the field is the best seat in the house.
Reporting from the West Bank, Doug Mouton, 4th Down on 4.
It's a real interesting perspective. Thanks, Doug. Now, here's the local slate of games at Class Weekend. Kenwood and Oak Grove play for the 1A title Thursday at noon. The Kangaroos have 8 state titles in school history. The last was 2015. Amite plays Welsh for the 2A title Friday at noon. It's been 14 years since the Warriors won a title. Then Saturday, Curtis plays for the Division I title at noon. The Patriots going for title number 27. It's been 5 years, though, since their last one. And then Carr and Warren Easton follow that one for the 4A title at 3:30. The Cougars have won back-to-back seasons. The Eagles, get this, haven't won a state title in 76 years. We're back with more 4th Down on 4 in a minute. And most of you still confident in the black and gold. 68% of voters aren't worried one bit about that Dallas loss. Eternal optimists watching us tonight on 4th Down on 4. I like it. For producer Danny Rockwell, photographer Adam Ney, Doug Mouton, and Ricardo Lecomte, I'm Andrew Doak. Thanks for joining us on 4th Down on 4.
Fourth Down on 4 has been sponsored by the Sportsbook at Hollywood Casino Gulf Coast.